I'm Chuck Robinson, and we're at Village Books in Bellingham. My wife and I opened Village Books in 1980, in June of 1980, so we've been around almost 34 years. Well, owning a bookstore in Bellingham has been terrific. We knew when we picked Bellingham that it had a great connection to books already. One of the things that we had checked out was library circulation here, for instance, and it was amongst the highest per capita circulation in the country at that time. Then that's 34 years ago. And I assume it's probably stayed there as well. But the connection with the university here, a lot of people having chosen Bellingham as a place to live. I tell people all the time, our commercial fishermen here, many of them are people who were going to college up here at the university and fished in the summertime and ended up, so before they go out on their boats, they come and get a stack of books. And so it's a reading community. Well, people read all kinds of books in Bellingham, I think. I think the biggest difference between here and some big cities is that I think in places perhaps like LA and New York, people somehow feel an obligation to read certain books so that they could talk about them at cocktail parties. And I think the kind of books that people talk about at cocktail parties here aren't those things that are extremely popular. They're something unusual. So people tend to read all kinds of things. I think literature, certainly. I would say not. I would say very well-written books, both fiction and nonfiction. Not necessarily what you would call high literature, but things that are very well written. And I think that people here have very strong tastes in that way. History and politics are very important and very, very popular. I think things about the Northwest and the environment, things about outdoor living here. Outdoor living is a big thing in Bellingham. It constantly rates as one of the highest places for outdoor recreation, and I think that is reflected in what people read. Northwest authors sell here very well. People are very interested in knowing what the people around them are writing, not only people who live here in Bellingham and Whatcom County, but all over the Northwest. So anybody who in the Northwest who's written a book, it's a much better chance of selling here than some other places, I think, yeah. We, about a little over 4 years ago, Village Books started, we had a espresso book machine that was an on-demand printing machine that we could print books here and print and bind them in a way that they looked very much like any book that would come off a major press. And so we did that for several reasons. We wanted to be able to help local people self-publish their books, because we knew that there are a lot of books that would never get into major publication, but people would have interest in locally, and they didn't have to do a lot of them when you had an on-demand printing press and binder. And then we wanted to publish some books of our own here at the store too, things that had real local interest and value right here in our community that we knew wouldn't have distribution or interest outside of the community very far. And so we launched into that, and we had a lot of success with that. We helped a lot of people get their books into print. We have I think we have almost a dozen books of our own in print that we call the Chuckanut editions, because Chuckanut, the mountains that are right outside of Bellingham. Doesn't refer to Chuck's a nut, by the way, so, although people think that sometimes. Publishing in general is a very interesting piece of our entire business, and bookstores have been involved in publishing almost forever. I mean, it goes back to the old days of Dickens and others in England, when bookstores published books, and authors often published, some were self-published at that point. So it's always been some piece of the business. And what's changed most recently is technology that allows that to happen. So it wasn't possible until just a few years ago for that to happen inside of a bookstore. And now that's changed over time. So it's a very interesting business. I think if you controlled on a local level, I mean, for instance, with the books that we've published, all of those books had some financial success. They at least broke even and got better. Now, major publishers would love to have a record like that. I believe the latest thing I heard is the major publishers are fortunate if they are profitable on 3 out of every 10 books that they publish. But we were very careful about what books we picked. We have a very targeted audience here, and so we weren't publishing for the masses and hoping that marketing would reach them. We thought there was some built-in interest in those books. I think the important thing about Bellingham is I think Bellingham works really hard to build and maintain that sense of community. And I think if there's an important message for people that live elsewhere, it's not necessarily you should move to Bellingham, although we would welcome you here. I think the important message is that community is incredibly important, and that everything that you can do, whether it's from businesses or community service groups or whatever, that's a really, really important thing, and it makes it a place that's a wonderful place to live.